Hey guys, 66 here, and welcome to part 2 of my banned Yu-Gi-Oh! Card tier list. Part 1 was already insanely long, and I appreciate the feedback you guys have given. It was some nice comments there. Really like the respect for Gofu, because this card is incredible. And this part is probably going to be just as long, which is expected because I'm going so in-depth into each and every card, really explaining exactly why I put them where I do. Hope you guys learned something about all these banned cards in case they ever come back, which they probably won't, but we'll see, right? There's cards that no one ever thought could come back that came back and then didn't even do anything. So let's get into it. So first up, I actually have a couple of changes I want to make, or it's 3 actually. First off, Giant Tornado is going in C, and the reasoning for this is that it's basically Feather Duster against a trap deck if you can OTK them. And then what I realized is there are decks where you can main deck this and it won't kill you going first because you can technically get some advantage out of it, and that makes it a reasonable card. Is it as good as Feather Duster? Maybe not actually, but again, I think Feather Duster should get banned. This is a use, right? Being able to use it going first, not to like rely on it, but just so you can main deck it instead of forcing it to get side decked, I think makes Trunade actually pretty good. And I have a couple more moves here. I think Glow-a-Bulb should go in B. And what I realized is, oh yeah, like I mentioned before, all the good Hulk targets are banned. So if Glow-a-Bulb comes back, it will instantly be the best Hulk. So Glow-a-Bulb just ends up being a lot stronger because of that. It's like, oh yeah, right, it's the only good target if it were to come back. And I'm also moving Norden up to B tier. Not because of instant fusion, no. Because of super polymerization. Because think about it this way. If you have access to Norden and Dragos Depelia, you can just out everything. Dragos Depelia outs fusions, Norden outs synchros and XCs. It makes super poly so much stronger. Like the current Dragon Link board is hot red and savage, right? Super poly with Norden outs both of them. And if you have a card engraved, Norden can revive it. You probably won't because you're super polying immediately, but the point remains. Norden is a super poly target. And I think that's funny, but at the same time, like, yeah, that's actually really freaking strong. Alright, let's get on to the new stuff. First off, you have Grinder Golem. Grinder Golem is going in B tier. Alright, think about it this way. Grinder Golem is really good to draw, and it probably wins if you draw it. But it would be mostly unsearchable, and it would have to use up a whole bunch of extra deck space. Like, you'd have to basically not need your extra deck to take advantage of Grinder Golem. And then on top of that, you have to sort of limit yourself with cards that get rid of the extra deck, like Extravagance, for example. And, you know, you can't play things like Monarch's Erupt either. So you have to, like, have an extra deck for the Grinder Golem and then not use it very much because so much of it will be taken up to make the Grinder Golem really damn good. And it is just a one-of. Whereas some of these other cards I have in A tier that would be one-ofs, like the Confiscation, if you just draw it, sure, it's not as strong as Grinder Golem, but there's no investment. You can just play it. Whereas with the Grinder Golem, I think there's a lot of investment in that you have to use so much extra decks in order to perform the combo. Now, with that being said, this card's just so damn good, it basically just wins the game, that there are decks where it's worth it, and it just gives you a bunch of free wins, and this card's incredibly unfair. Technically, it is searchable off the Dark Contract Gate whatever thing, but that card's like super nag and it can get hand trapped, so we're not going to consider it. And yeah, that's why I put Grinder in B. Also, it is kind of susceptible to Nibiru because you have to do the whole bounce loop, and in that you're summoning 5 times before you put up any forms of negation. Other thing to consider there. Sima also put this in B, and I think that's reasonable, so let's just move on. Agar Pain, same thing. Sima also put this one in B. Agar Pain is just really good. You can put up a free negate with it, and then it immediately links off into Hieratic very efficiently because it's going to be in the extra monster zone anyways. And it's just even easier to use now that we have Master Rule 5, which means less things get in your way. It's just a really good card. If you guys remember Guard Dragon's OG Dragon Link, Dragon Pendulum, Orcus Zephyr, best deck of all time. Let's go. That deck was so damn good. This card just gives you a free negate. And because it's in the extra deck, you don't have to put investment into it. You just play it, and then you can use your deck to go into it. And now that we have the Whelp, this card is even easier to go into. It's so easy to make. It's really strong because they're not just tiny negates. No, these are big negates, omnis, and they have big stats, so they're hard to get over. Agar Pain is just a really strong card. You can also summon Moral Sword in OTK. That's another thing you can do. This card's very versatile. It's very, very strong. And then next up we have Heavy Storm. So I was debating putting this in D because I do think it's worse than Feather Duster to an extent. In some decks, though, you can main deck this because you can get a slight advantage off nuking your own back row. Now, that's not actually broken or anything because you can't really abuse that since this is an unsearchable one-of. Right? You can't abuse a unsearchable one-of that's not a starter as a combo piece, only comboing with other specific cards. That doesn't work that well. But there is a consideration where there are some decks where you can main deck this, like Meadowfoes, for example, and nuke your own traps. Kind of weird with the scales, but just an example. And that will make it pretty good. I think I'll put in the same tier as Trunade here, because again, I think Feather Duster would be a C tier ban card. Feather Duster should just get banned. I've been saying this for a while now. It's really too strong. Cimoooooooo puts it like way higher. I think that's kind of weird.
Heavy Storm is probably a B. I kind of want to give this an A tier because Heavy Storm just wins games left and right.
Honestly, it would come off the list, and it would just be another annoyance for trap deck players. The idea of comboing with your own cards is cool. It will come up every once in a while, but it doesn't make the card broken at all because, again, it's an unsearchable one-of. So next up, we have Heavy Meadowfoes Electromite. Easily the best card in the game. Well, not easily per se, because there are some other really broken cards we'll be going into in this episode. But Electromite's Electromite. Alright, think about it this way. The new Sulfa Cord Link monster that's coming out, what does it do? It replaces a card in your hand with a card already in your extra deck, and there's like this weird odd even scale thing, right? Cool. And that card's going to be staple in Pendulums, right? What does Daybreaker do? Daybreaker destroys a card on your field, going first. Going second, you destroy the opponent's, but usually you actually just use it going first to destroy your own cards. Okay, and is Daybreaker good in Pendulums? Oh yeah. If you guys have been paying attention, Daybreaker is one of the best cards in the Pendulum extra deck right now, in the Pure Endymion extra deck. Daybreaker is actually essential to doing a lot of cool plays and fixing bad hands by popping your own card. Okay, what does Electromite do? Well, first of all, it pops your own card, and then it adds a card from your extra deck to your hand. So that's like it's the Sulfa Cord Link and Daybreaker combined, and oh yeah, there's no level stipulation. And also, it's not once per turn. And also, it draws a card. Oh yeah, that's true. And when you summon it, you get to send a card. And that means you basically get to search any pendulum. Yeah, that's what Electromite does. The Sulfa Cord Link is literally 10% of Electromite, and we're hyped for it. That's how broken Electromite is in comparison. And if we just take a look and compare it to an A tier card, for example, let's say we have Steam, for example. Yeah, if you Hawk into Steam, you get, like, +2 advantage. That's, like, you know, just generic token-y stuff that's not that strong. Whereas with Electromite, you get advantage, and they're also searches. And it's very specific. And you get to, you know, kill a brick and get in your extra deck to pen summon. It doesn't even compare, right? It's not even close. It just sits there in the extra deck. So you can summon it whenever you want in a Pendulum deck. And if you do, the amount of advantage it generates is incredible. The amount of consistency it gives you, the free draw for no reason, the fact that it's not even once per turn, so you can like loop it potentially. You wouldn't, unless you're playing Mithrilium Loop. That's kind of out there, but you can do it. Card's incredible. It really is. Electromite is so broken as a card. I don't know how you can put it anywhere other than S tier. Cimoooooooo, I think put it in like B or C. It's like, oh, it can come back. I want it to come back. It definitely can't because it'd be so... Like, Pen's already the best deck without Electromite.
A lot of people feel like Electromite could come off the ban list. I think it could as well, but the thing is, this is still a very strong Yu-Gi-Oh card.
I'm serious about that because Pens right now with Pure Anemia puts up 7 negates consistently, 6 if you're not quite so lucky. Can put up 5 through hand trap, 4 through 2 hand traps pretty easily actually. Anything but draw, okay, lose to draw. And it can break boards going second. Pen is so broken right now, even without Electrum. It's already the best deck. And then you add in this card, which is just insanely strong. Electromite is so good. If you guys understand my explanation with the Sulfur Cord Link and Daybreaker each being like 10% of Electromite, then you sort of start realizing how ridiculous Electromite is and why it can not go anywhere but S tier. Can you say that about any of these other cards where an already good card is just 10% of it? Well, one of them, it'll be coming up. There are some, but it is S tier worthy, let's just say that. And next up we have Justiciar. This card's really good as a World Champs player. I want it to come back. B tier, same tier as Denlong. You kind of need the same amount of bricks, but I think the cards you get for Justiciar are a bit better than the Yang Zing bricks for Denlong. It's comparable in that respect. I think this card is better because you can make Dragon combo with it, and it's really strong. It's really freaking strong. And level 5 Synchro is surprisingly easy to make, especially with something like Dinos, which has easy access to it. And if you just count the amount of plus this gives you, it's like, okay, you neg 1 when you summon it, but you immediately add a card, so that's neutral. Then when it dies, you summon a card, so that's +1. And then the Guard Dragon summon another card, which is +2. Not to mention, you can go LP inside that, and also the fact that, the card you add can further facilitate that, because it's going to be the Guard Dragon Spring a lot of the time, which you move, resolve the LP to get even more advantage. This card has insane combo potential. It's really easy to make. It's highly versatile, but it does require a few bricks. B honestly kind of seems a little low for it, but with some of the insane extra deck cards we have, and a card like Block Dragon getting you essentially the same amount plus for Rock as this does for Dragon, I think should put them around the same tier. Next up we have Jet Synchron. So Jet Synchron is actually either a B or a C because it is one of the best Hulk targets right now. It's kind of still a bad Hulk target though because I have discard to get the effects. I think I'll leave it in C tier. It's searchable off tuning, which is really cool. And I really do want it to come back because it can combo with Excel Synchron. And I think without the presence of Link Cross, it's not nearly as broken as it would have been before anyways. Maybe it's D because it can come back. Yeah, I think we'll put in D just because I think it can come back. And we'll call it like that for now.
Jet Synchron is like a C tier, I feel.
Now, interestingly, Cimo actually puts these two both in C in the same tier, which I think is kind of out there because Justiciar is a lot stronger than Jet Synchron is. Jet Synchron does have some replacements, though right now, better cards like Low Bulb are banned, so I can see this being a C. I can see that point being made, but I think it can come back, so we're going to leave it in D tier. D tier is like it can come back, and it'll be alright, and it won't do too much. F tier is like it can come back, there will be no deck where it's actually good. And next up we have Kaiser. So Kaiser is going to be D tier instead of F tier. I know, kind of crazy for how weak the effect is, honestly, especially going second. The effect does nothing going second. But the point here is Dragoon's a card. So you just go Red Eye Fusion and then Kaiser. Watch the opponent cry. Whole point in this card, just because Dragoon exists and it doesn't let you summon anything else anyway, so you just plop this thing down. It works. It's kind of dumb. But the card's honestly not that strong. Like, Dragoon becomes impossible to out, because how are you going to make a big Link monster through this thing? It's a huge conundrum there. But again, it's just so bad going second, and it's such a brick as well. It's not a great card. Simo puts this in C, because oh yeah, it's a dumb card, but it's not any good. And next up we have Mermaid. So, I think Mermaid's a B, in line with some of these, because Ibly is so strong, and so is Orcus Nightmare still. It can go Nightmare into Wand, and then, summon back the Nightmare, link those into Galatea. Galatea can get a free crescendo effect, and then It can go into Ding as well to out Dragoon. So Mermaid's actually really cool in some trap deck like Eldritch or Altergeist even, because it will allow you to out that Dragoon and out that Feather Duster, whether you're going first or second, which is really strong and versatile, though it requires some bricks, so you may or may not actually want to do that. It allows you to defeat your two great weaknesses, not to mention that the Nightmare will go back to grave, so it will then be able to get something like the Skeleton, for example, and then revive a Galateo, which can also further your grind game if you're willing to play a larger Orcus package, which might be worth it if Mermaid exists, even without Harpoor. I think that's very interesting. Mermaid's a really good card. Cimoooooooo puts this in C. I disagree. I think it's a B because it's so accessible. You can just slap it in a deck. And then next up we have Nightmare Goblins. I think Goblin is also a B tier card. Card's really good. It's kind of hard to use in the grand scheme of things because you have to, point down and then summon this and then discard a card to get the second normal summon. It's like a bit late. But the cards are so versatile in that, you just summon wherever you want. And a Link 2 generic that points both sides isn't exactly a bad card. Goblin's a really neat card. Also lets you discard whenever you want, which is another thing Mermaid lets you do as well, which matters. There are situations where you do want a free discard, and Barricade Board Blocker kind of does that for you, but these are just better than that because they give you extra effects on top. So I think these two deserve the same tiering. Cimoooooooo actually put Mermaid down a tier, which, again, I disagree with. And then Last Will. Last Will can summon quite a lot as a spell. There are decks that can definitely take advantage of it, but at the same time, it is a bit hard to proc. It's not completely free, and there is a significant amount of benefit you can get out of searching any 1500 attack card from your deck. But as a one-of unsearchable spell in its own right, it's not actually boosting your consistency by all that much. And then once you do consider the fact that you can get interrupted to the point where you don't send a card for this to actually resolve, that does become a detriment. Now, there are decks where this is insanely powerful. In decks where you can make Link 1s very easily. So, Almirage off a normal summon, Maiden off any spellcaster, Animal or Linkuriboh off a level 1. Those are prime examples. Striker Dragon off any dragon. There are these cards, which are Link 1s, that let you instantly get off Last Will no matter what monster you have on field by replacing it with that Link 1. And I think otherwise I would have put in B, but because of the presence of those Link 1s that make this so much more consistent, I think it deserves an A tier. And it's a shame that I don't think Cimoooooooo mentions that at all, where yeah, the reason Last Will is so consistent, in some decks at least, is because they have access to Link 1s. That makes it just immediate, where you always are able to send your monster to the graveyard from the field by linking it. And next we have Lavalval Chain. So I think Chain's actually a C tier. Chain is part of a lot of really strong combos, but I think the problem is right now there isn't a super strong rank 4 deck, and the fact that there are a lot of really good grave effects that aren't legal anymore, which we'll get into. We already have gone into some of them, like this, and arguably this as well. So once you take that into account, it's like, and this, you realize the targets for Lavalval Chain sort of aren't what they used to be. And then you take into account the fact that, again, rank 4 decks aren't as powerful right now because some of the good rank 4s are banned. That's like a small factor. But I think a larger factor is just power creep. You'd rather Link summon because Links are so strong. And then the fact that Links can go into bigger Links where XCs just kind of stick on your board. Right? Link climbing's a thing. XC's climbing really isn't. And I think Lavalval Chain is sort of power creep. Now, would it be really good if it came back? Would people try to make it? And I think the answer to that is a definite yes. Especially when you have really easy ways to make rank 4s, like the new Onomat support that the ADA players used to use. I think Lavalval Chain would be a good card. Do I think it can come back? Maybe. There might be some really strong combo I'm not thinking of. But as of right now, I think it's actually reasonable for the Volvo chain to come back, so maybe I'll put it in D along with Ancient Fairy. I honestly think that's fair. Alright, next up we have Level Eater. So, Level Eater is actually either A tier or S tier. And the reason for that is because it's so accessible. You can get this off Where Art Thou, you can get this off of Armageddon Knight, and by extension Rhoda, you can get this off Mathematician, you can get this off Foolish Burial. It is really easy to get Level Eater in the graveyard, and once you do get in the graveyard, so long as you can make a high level monster, this thing goes plus ridiculous. It goes plus ridiculous. That's the word I'm using for it. Because let's say you have level 7, this goes plus 3 from the grave. Just summon, summon, summon. Let's say you have a level 9, the card goes plus 5 all of a sudden. Now, you can't play this with Virtual World, which is kind of sad because Virtual World restricts yourself. Imagine, bro, you just make level 9 and then summon this repeatedly. But there are so many decks that can use levels and really try to take advantage of Level Eater. And they might not even be that good right now. But because Level Eater is so broken in and of itself that it's able to like full combo into whatever it wants. And you can't even stop it, really. I think it even works with tokens, doesn't it? I could be wrong here, but I believe it works with tokens. Which means that if you get Nibiru, it doesn't even matter. I could be wrong here, but I think you just eat off the Nibiru token. Oh my god. If that works, that's even more broken than I thought it was. And the point I'm making there is there's no hand trap to stop your Level Eater combo with. It doesn't matter what they do once the Level Eater starts going off. It's like they negate one of your cards. Okay, you just summon like X amount of more times, so it doesn't matter. You can make Apollo immediately since you're getting so much free link material. That S tier I think is almost warranted just because of how easy it is to pull off Level Eater. Like, once you get it and in the right deck, it will just win. It's like, and then Simo has this argument. He puts it in C, I think, which is ridiculous. That, oh, you have to play a specific deck for it.
I think it's a C tier, though, because even though it can resurrect itself over and over again, you do need to be playing it in the right deck.
It's like, yeah, you will play a specific deck for it because it just wins. Right? You have to play a specific deck to summon Broltar off your LP. It's like, yeah, you're gonna do that, though, because that's gonna win the game. Right? You have to play a specific deck for you to use LP, right? You have to have a whole bunch of dragons. Like, yeah, you have to have a whole bunch of high-level monsters for Level Eater. Do that, because Level Eater can win the game by itself once you have, you know, a single high-level monster, because it can summon itself so many times. And now that we have Anima on top of Link Haribo, we just have even more fodder for this. Apollo to negate all hand traps once you get it down, and then you can start user spam. You can do whatever you want. Level Eater's insane. Next up, we have Link Cross. So I think Link Cross is an A tier over some of these because it's an instantaneous plus that so many decks can take advantage of. You can make a Link monster, you can make Hulk, you can take advantage of Link Cross. Without Hulk, you can still take advantage of it, but with Hulk, it's even easier because you can immediately start synchroing in order to turn those tokens into free advantage in form of formula, drawing a card, in the form of Marcher, just summoning a card back, turning them into Link materials immediately. It's just so accessible. I think this is like Dandelion, right? Where you're just getting 2 tokens for free. What it means is that every combo you can do with Links suddenly just got stronger thanks to Link Cross. And because it's in the extra deck, it's never gonna break, right? It's a more versatile card than Mermaid that generates more advantage at the same time, which is utterly ridiculous. So that's why it gets the A tier. Like, you're using an already good Link monster like Hulk or Celine to make this. Right? You're literally not sacrificing anything, because once those cards get their effects off, you just take them off the field. Alright, next up we have Lunalight Tiger. So would 1 Tiger do anything if it came back? Not really. I think it could come back to 1 very comfortably. So we're going to leave it in D tier. It's actually a really strong card. It's a really strong card because it's not once per turn. At 1 though, loop it. You can still loop it, but not quite so easily. So I think it can come back to 1. It probably should. It doesn't need to be banned.
I'll give this a C tier as well. Again, it's one of those cards you need to play in the archetype.
And just for reference, Simo put this in C with Level Eater in C. And that makes 0 sense to me. Because, like, this at its best, you can loop it a few times, it will plus a few. This at its best will plus 20. And next up, you have Magical Scientist. So, S tier. Because it's searchable. And it auto-wins on normal summon. Not as good as auto-winning without the normal summon, but it's searchable. So, it's a different idea altogether. How is it searchable, you ask? Where art thou? Magical Abductor. Magical Abductor, mostly. So, you have Servant, Triple Mastery. Triple Abductor, actually, because you're just going to summon this off Saryuja because it's worth it. That's 7. And then triple Where Art Thou, because you're going to play whatever you need to turbo this. You have 10 copies of Magical Scientist in your deck. 11 if you count the copy itself. And you can play X amount of draw cards because it's Endymion to turbo this even more. And once this hits a board, you win the game because what can you do with this? You can literally just go off. You can summon so many fusions with this. You can summon 7 fusions if you use your life points. You can immediately summon Millennium Eyes to protect yourself from hand traps. You can summon cards to go into Exceeds to put up negates. You can go into Theseus and make Zolkin to put up negate. You can make Synchros, Exceeds, Links, whatever you want. And of course you can make fusions because all this thing does is summon fusions. That's the effect. And since it's not once per turn, you can just summon as many as you want, so long as you have life points, and it's only 1,000 each. Not to mention that they can still attack your opponent's monsters, so you can also break boards with this. Yeah, balance card, I think, right? Balance card. The Scientist is the easiest S tier.
I want to give it an S, but I think that's being too generous. I'm going to go ahead and give it an A tier.
And Simo puts it in A because I don't think he realizes that this thing's searchable. This thing's searchable. And it's not like, you know, you got this obscure search card like you do for Grinder Golem. Like, no, you literally can search it with Abductor, which you can always get out with Servant. And Abductor searching this is actually a really strong play. And again, you will literally just go into Saryuja to summon this. Or you can Pendulum summon this with a scale 0. Not quite as easy, but you can do it because, you know, again, it's worth it. You can go DD, Where Art Thou, search this, and then your contract can go ahead and add your Go, right? Just pen summon this out. And once this hits the board, you win, and if it doesn't get negated, which at this stage you have baited out the opponent's negates, theoretically at least, you just win. So it's a searchable one card win in the best deck. They have Kieran. Kieran's really good. It's like Dragoon, right? The protection, all the Magispectors are like Dragoon. Eldritch stands 0 chance against Magispector, by the way. You just can't out all the little guys. They're all protected. And it's support. It bounces a card, and it's searchable off Bambuku. So you essentially have a bunch of copies, and then add on Pegasus, you have even more copies. Whole bunch of copies of this card, and it's a free interruption, which it's just really strong. I mean, that's all I have to say. Kieran's a really damn good card, and Simo would agree with me. He puts it in C. Yeah, there's not too much Simo roasting in this video. There's a lot of really broken cards that Simo doesn't understand how broken they are. We've just gone over, 3 of them already. There's going to be even more. But, yeah, part 3 is where we're really going to be roasting him because there are some really bad takes. We'll get there when we get there. Mass Driver, I don't even want to talk. This card literally doesn't do anything, so we're just going to put an F tier. And, okay, there is some roasting, though. Oh, gosh.
God, do I hate this card. A lot of people love it. I don't know why. This card is just absolutely horrific. I'm going to give this an A tier. The fact that it's impervious to 2 of the 3 main card types in the game. When you tribute summon it, it can pop stuff at quick effect speed, and its attack power is gigantic. Yeah, this card is, not okay.
Masterpiece? He put Masterpiece in A tier? This card is trash. Okay, it's not quite F. This card can come back and won't do anything. Dracos, with 1 Masterpiece, will not break the game. They really won't, believe it or not. They won't do anything, actually. It's unaffected by 2 types of cards out of 3. Yeah, but, you can just attack over this thing with access code. It's really not that hard. And, Dragoon exists. And sure, you can kill Dragoon with non-targeting, non-destruction removal. What, Ningirsu? Just make access code, bro. Just attack over it. The thing with Dragoon is it's also an actual negate on top, and on your turn it can kill 2 cards at once and do burn damage, and it grows super massive, so eventually you can't beat over it all. And remember that Diagram is at 1, so it's not even consistent. You're often getting this without Diagram. So at that point, it's 2950. It just dies. It's a 3000 attack, which is not hard to make at all. Altergeist can easily get to 3,000 with your Hextia. And this really doesn't compare to Dragoon. Like, the quick effect pop is nice and it's pretty strong. But also, you can't make this with any Link 2. And again, people will just attack over it. It's harder to get out than Dragoon. It's not as consistent to get out as a Dragoon. He's not even protected as well because it doesn't have as much attack. And as an interruption, it's worse. And it doesn't have OTK potential like Dragoon does either. Like, Dragoon just completely outclasses this. And I would argue Red Eyes Fusion should get banned, but still. Even if without the Dragoon comparison, Master Beat just isn't good enough. With one diagram, Dracos aren't turboing this super consistently. And even if they are, it's not enough to win the game. It's really not. Demise is at 1 too, so the Dracos are completely crippled already. And yeah, they have gotten some stuff back, but even then, Master Beast really isn't that strong. So overrated. This card isn't that strong at all. Next up, we have Max C. So, is Max C an S tier card? No. Not even close, in fact. If you look at these S tier cards, going first or second, you can just win the game straight up by themselves. Safe Return is a bit questionable going second, but like Safe Return, it's just so good going first that it instantly wins you the game. Whereas the thing with Max C is that if you go second with it, and you're playing against a right combo deck, you will just win the game. They can't negate it either. Though there are quite a few stipulations there. Eldritch is already really good, so people are just going to play more Eldritch, and this card becomes even worse, even going second. And then going first, this card's kind of a brick. So if your opponent has hand traps, then they can OTK you. Unless you're playing a whole bunch of hand traps as well to draw off Max C to stop them from OTK you, this card can actually lose you games going first, which I think is a huge problem. Brings it all the way down to B tier, especially at 1.
This is one of the biggest game warping cards ever. It's really funny because the OCG has 3 of this and the TCG has 0, and we think that is the correct way to go about it. I 100% agree with that, by the way.
You either have a 3 or a 0, it breaks the game at once. Like, yeah, it kind of breaks the game because it's really unfair. But, like, that's the kind of a property of ban cards, is that they're really broken. And when you're comparing to other ban cards, Max C just doesn't have that much going for it. And they have O-Line. O-Line's like a C or a D. Okay, because Cold Wing combos exist, O-Line doesn't even matter that much. It really doesn't. So we're just going to put it in D. And Zemo would agree with me there. Again, like, he says it's an ass because it would, like, warp the game. It's like, bro, do you really think that that's enough to make a ban card S tier? You're comparing to all the other ban cards in the game, which are banned for a reason. It's because they were really good. And when you consider that, Max C is not a top tier ban card. Then we have Metamorphosis. So this card is actually really strong. I would like to see it come back almost. Could be super fun, but it's a bit too good to come back. The reason I'm putting it in C is because it's not actually that broken since it is kind of a neg. Now there's a lot of really broken stuff you can do with it. You can summon Dragoon, for example. You can summon Millennium Eyes, I think. So there's some really strong plays that the Metamorphosis can make. And I would love to do them, even if they are kind of neg, because it is really strong. But at the same time, because it's not an insane advantage card, it's not going to just win the game outright by itself. Or it might, but, you know, you have to have a whole bunch of other stuff going for you in that game as well. And also considering the fact that you have to put extra deck cards for it and really, you know, build around. And you have to use your brain, basically, for Metamorphosis to be really good, and even then, as an unsearchable one-of, it's not going to just break the game, right? So I think C is fair. And then Mind Master, this card's like super dumb, but the combo is kind of hard to pull off. So I'm going to put in C, because if this card does go off, it just wins the game by being really, really dumb. But it is not super consistent. You do have to play a ton of bricks per se. Okay, they're not like hard bricks, and psychics do have some good cards, but you do have to play cards that are unconventional, to say the least. Alright, next up we have Mirage of Nightmare. So Sable put this card all the way up in A. I think that's kind of ridiculous. I'm dropping this card all the way down to C, possibly D. I think this card could come back at some point. Okay, that might be a bit of a stretch. If you're playing the right amount of hand traps, this card is really good, because what you can do is you play your whole hand, you activate this, and then you draw 4. and then if you draw hand traps, you can use them. Problem there is if your deck has a lot of hand traps, you're not going to be able to play your entire hand. So there's that initial conundrum already. The fact that it's an unsearchable one-of that you have to sort of build around, which it's not too hard. You just have to be able to pop. Even if you don't pop it, it's kind of fine if you draw into hand traps. But it is slow, especially going second. Going second, this card is super. And in a trap deck, that's not a huge problem. But then in a trap deck, it's a bit harder to, not suffer from the discard. Again, you can pop it to not suffer, but you have to do an extra step there. Not completely reliable in that respect. You can generate a lot of advantage, but it's kind of late. Like, if you get hand trapped down, you can't combo off. This isn't going to stop you from getting OTK'd unless you're playing a ton of hand traps. And if you are playing a ton of hand traps, you probably aren't going to be able to draw 4 off of this. And then Invoker. Invoker is really good, but I think it stays at C tier right now. And the reason for that is Firewall Goki no longer exists, and that's what made this really broken, because you just get a Goki, and then that gets a Goki, and the that gets a Goki, and it just keeps looping forever. Without that, Invoker is still a really good card, but keep in mind Brilliant Fusion's banned, so the O for Scorpio combo isn't nearly as strong. Terratop's been at 1 for a while now, so that's not really a viable option either. And the fact that rank 3s just aren't as made as they were before, which is kind of weird to think about, but it is true, so this would actually be kind of cool to come back as a good rank 3. It is an insanely good card, though, because it's a once card is sold, plus get a card that can potentially generate more advantage. For that reason, I think it's a solid C tier. And then we have Dark Matter. I think B is reasonable. Dark Matter is really good, obviously. It has so many effects. It is a huge beater, for one, which is actually really strong with cards like Dragoon in the game. Can attack 2 monsters in the battle phase, which is really strong. It also sends 3 dragons on summon, which is the main effect. Now, making a rank A, that's not easy. That's not easy at all. But if you can do that, this card is actually really strong. The effect is such a high. And then add on the fact that on the way to making this, you can make full armor to pop a card. So this actually becomes really good at clearing boards on top of comboing, which I think grants a B tier, even though there might not be a deck to make it right now. There are generic level 8 support cards like the Galaxy Spiral or whatever, which can make this more consistent. And the fact that cards like Leviator already exist are already really good, that just cleanly fit in getting a rank A to then rank up into the Dark Matter. And then we have Galaxy Tomahawk. So I think Cimoooooooo does this card a huge disservice by putting it in C tier. Realize that he says you put in the extra monster zone and summon 5? No. Master Rule 5, you put this in the main monster zone. And then you can summon 4. If you already have a card in the extra monster zone, this still works. You just have a link up, and then you summon this, summon 4. Or you can go extra monster zone, summon 5. Either way works, right? That's what you have to realize here. And if you do put this in the main monster zone, it's a lot easier to use, because you can just start linking immediately. You don't have to find a way to get rid of this, get it out of the way, so you can start linking better. You have to do a link 2 first and then put stuff under it. It's just a lot cleaner now with Master Rule 5 that you can put in the main monster zone as well. It might not be super easy to make, but this does get a pretty ridiculous amount of advantage. I think enough advantage to warrant a B tier placement over the C tier. Alright, then we have Rongo. So is Rongo an A or an S? Yeah, Cimoooooooo does Rongo, puts in B. I fervently disagree.
I'll give it a B tier just because we gave Gumblar a B tier.
This card is such a strong win condition because Rusty is currently legal, and that gets you half a Rongo for free by itself. So all you need to do is get the other half, and that's not that hard. And then 99% of the time, a 5 material Rongo will just win the game with any follow-up. And if you have 6 material, you don't even need the follow-up. You board wipe them and kill them. It's that simple. I mean, like, this card is so ridiculous. They can't do anything. They can't summon, they can't kill this with card effects, and it blows up their board, so they can't even set. Like, if you have 6, it just blows up their board next turn. And that's not even hard to do. You just need Rusty plus 2 level 3s plus a level 4 warrior, which is not hard. Card's ridiculous. It's just an auto win. Like, I don't know what else I have to say about that to justify giving it a high ranking. I mean, and they have Shockmaster. Is Shockmaster S tier? Yes. Remember when I said rank 4s were kind of hard to and not so optimal? Yeah, Shockmaster would just completely change that by itself because it's completely worth it. You just win the game, and then post-side is even better. It's in the extra deck, so it's not like you're going to brick on Shockmaster, call the wrong one. You don't have to make it. And games 2 and 3 is even better. You just call whatever you know what you're playing against, and then you win the game. I mean, it's pretty simple. And is it hard for a deck to make 3 level 4s? No, not in the slightest. Pendulum can do it, Dragon Link can probably try to pull it off in some form. And those are the decks I'm thinking off the top of my head. Ada can probably do it. Like, you can just make your deck make Shockmaster. You can force it to do it. And I'm putting it higher than Rongo because it's even easier to make, and it's not as broken, but you don't need any bricks for it. Rongo, you need a plentiful amount of bricks. Shock is so much more free. And then there's Zaxel. Alright, it's kind of weird, but Zaxel goes in S tier because the new support exists. Just says make Zaxel whenever you want, and then Zaxel you can't use because it's banned, so it's balanced, right? Zaxel is almost an auto win. Now they can negate it, but with the new support, it's just so easy to do this on top of whatever else you want. I think that's kind of dumb. For a realistic representation of how good it ever could have been, because again, it got preemptively hit. B, because Numeron's are really dumb and broken, and you can turbo through this, and the fact that because this got banned, Argent Chaos Force is now back. That makes this super easy to get to, so it's a B. You got Harp Horror. Cimoooooooo put this in F, and he said he could easily come back and won't do anything. No. This card is so good in Eldritch. I want to play this in Eldritch. It's actually too good, though.
Harp Horror is an F tier. This goes up like with Mirage Stalio. Both of these cards could come back and would do absolutely nothing for the game.
Remember what I was saying about like Mermaid and being able to do that? Like, Harp makes Girsu so much better. So much better. Like, not even remotely comparable. And it just makes Orcas actually good. Cimoooooooo thinks Orcas won't do anything with Harp. Oh, it will. Like, Girsu's such a good normal summon, and you just use it with trap decks. That's only a 2-rank switch, though. In part 3, you guys will be seeing some, going from here, like, up here all the way down here. Just wait and see. Alright, next we have Azza. So I think Cimoooooooo put this in B.
Azathoth is a B tier. This card, I don't know what they were thinking when this came out. The fact that Azathoth makes it so that your opponent can't use any sort of effects, that effect doesn't even activate. It's just like a condition, so you can't even like respond to it or attempt to negate it. And when you get into that little nuance of Yu-Gi-Oh, that it just makes it not fun at all. So you already have an unfun card that has like loopholes to make it more unfun. Yeah, B tier card, but absolutely F tier fun to play against.
We know this is an easy S tier because rank up magic is legal right now and you can get off Rusty. Did he just somehow forget about that? Because it was like, it's really obvious. That's what people did with Atha, so, and that's why this card was broken. And then they banned the rank up magic. And then they only brought it back after they banned Azza. Card's super good going first in order to just stop all hand traps. It's really good with the rank up because it just wins the game half the time. And is really good going second too, because if you make this, turbo into this, before the opponent can negate you or interrupt you, you can turn off their negates. It doesn't even activate. It's just like, yeah, it lingers and it stays, and it really does live up to the name of Azathoth. And then we have another S tier, Painful Choice. This is the card I was referring to where a good card, Foolish, is 10% of this. Because, okay, it's 4 dumps instead of 1, but then you add a card, so that's, like, worth a whole bunch as well. Oh my gosh, the card's so freaking broken. And, like, it can get Ash, and it can get Spell Trap negated if you're going second. But what you would literally do is bait everything out and then use Painful, because this card's a 1-card win. Like, this card's arguably even better than Gofu, even though Gofu's way harder than negate as a 1-card option. You could left arm into this, and you probably wouldn't even have to struggle too hard thinking about it. Because sending 4 cards from deck to grave and adding 1 to hand is utterly ridiculous, and there's not even like different name restriction on it. You can send cards of the same name if you want to guarantee it, and you don't even need to like think of a combo for this, because like, you just play whatever good graveyard effects you want that already fit in your deck, and then just slap a Painful in there and you can proc all of them. They have Plush Fire. Plush Fire is ridiculous.
I'm going to put this in C tier just solely because of the fact that it is so broken in multiples and was part of the reason for one of the very few tier 0 decks we've experienced in Yu-Gi-Oh!
You put Plush Fire in C? How? This card is utterly ridiculous. Okay, with Electromite, this is an A. Without, I think B is fine. Still maybe a bit low just because of how much you can do with it. Like, just the cards that proc, you can play Barrage because you're going to be playing rank 4s anyways. Why not add Zodiacs? You can play Metal Foes. Okay, that's one way to do it. Then you can go Sky Iris. That's pretty free as well because Revolution exists now. And this isn't even once per turn. Controversial for a pen player, we're putting Monkey Board all the way down in D tier, actually. I know this is really weird coming from a Pendulum, but I honestly don't think that Monkey Board is super broken right now. Cimo puts it in B, but you see, Cimo doesn't actually understand Pendulums. What makes Monkey Board so good is that it's one card scales. Search Joker, Joker adds scale, you just win. Right, the Monkey Board itself is searchable as well, which then makes it even more broken. The problem, and it's a consistency card. So you have 3 of this card, which then can constantly help you complete your scales and let you pen summon whenever you want. And that's really broken. But at 1, it doesn't do that much. It's a consistency booster that's not itself searchable, right? It's a plus card that is unsearchable, so it goes like +1. And then you have to realize Perform Pals aren't good right now, and there's nothing good to search off of this because Joker is banned. So you have to play a brick, so to speak. There are some decent Perform Pals in order to plus off this consistency. And then you want to search the consistency card to make the brick more playable. Well, what search is this? You got your Sorcerer, but that's after the pen summon usually, so it's too late. Or you got the Donkey, that requires full scales, so you'd have to have something that leaves the scale in order to take advantage of the Monkey Board. And you have Joker. Joker's honestly a bit better because, well, you can play with Magician, so it's like easier to use. Once the Sulfa Chord link comes out, this is an easy C tier. Try a D right now, it can come back really easily, but we're gonna put it in C for now, just because we know the Sulfa Chord link will come out. And then last card of the day, Amaryllis. Card's dumb. With the plant combo you do is you go top of Logic, and then you have this out with a bunch of plant support, and then you just banish plants from your grave and summon this back. And that's like really easy because there are a whole bunch of plants that can very easily turbo more plants from your deck. Lone Fire, for example. There's another one I think that they would play that instantly gets you 3 engrave. It's really easy to pull off the FTK. But then again, it's not quite as easy now because we do have some hits like Low Bulb and Dandelion. So it is a bit harder now. I'm not exactly sure where to put this. So Simo put this in F. Let's try to hear his explanation for that.
Same thing for Phoenixian Cluster Amaryllis. Exact same reason, actually. So any cards that are like this are going to be F tier because they're just boring and they're not good. They just enable a stupid combo because of the way the game has aged.
Yeah, so Simo says they're not good, but then that they facilitate an F. And an FTK, by definition, is winning the game if you pull it off. So I don't know how you can consider that not good unless the FTK is really hard to pull off. And in this case, do we think this card can come back? No. So we're gonna actually put this in C tier. There are a lot of very, very major disagreements coming up in the next video though, so look forward to part 3. That's the Simo roasting video. This was more of a just band card review. Same thing with the first one. Bring insight that Simo's video obviously didn't have. Next video will be just ripping him apart because, yeah, there are some really bad placements in that selection. That's gonna be all for today, guys. Take care, y'all. Goodbye.